I'm just going to take my finger and add on some setting powder, just so that when I go to add on my brow products, my brows won't be looking so oily. You also can do this step with a sponge or a brush. Now I'm going to take my spoolie and brush my brows in the direction that the hair grows, and I'm going to zoom in closer so you can get a better look. Now I'm just going to outline the bottom of my brows, and I'm doing this very lightly, and I'm just following the direction that my brows grow. I will be giving my brows some TLC very soon. I just been letting them grow out a little bit. Now I'm going to outline the top portion, and as y'all can see, I do have a natural arch there, but I'm just following the direction of how my brows are. I was going to continue to use the brow pencil, but then I realized that I am almost out. So now I'm just going to switch over to my brow pomade. I'm using the shade dark brown, and I'm just using this to fill in my brows. I'm a perfectionist, so now I'm just going to go back in with my brow pencil just to make sure that that line is crispy. You don't have to do this part. Now I'm just going to repeat those same steps on the opposite side. And don't worry, your brows are supposed to be sisters, not twins, but I just try to make mine as close as possible. You don't want to purposely mess up on your brows, and I'm going to show you what I mean in just a second. Now, I did not purposely make this brow a little thicker than the other side, but I am right-handed, so it was kind of hard for me to do that left side of my face with my right hand without having my hand block the camera. I'm going to zoom in a little closer so you can see how I clean up my brows. I'm taking a concealer that's closer to my skin tone to do this process. You can use one that is a little bit lighter. It's totally your choice. Now I'm going to just take a flat brush and get as close as I can to that outline without going over. And I'm just going to continue to follow that just so that line can be a little more crispy. Now I'm just going to take a beauty blender just to blend that out a little bit more, just so that when I go to add my eyeshadows that everything is nice and flat. I'm just repeating the same step, just outlining just to make sure that that brow is nice and crispy, and then just blend everything out with the brush before grabbing my beauty blender. And since this brow is a little bit thicker, it's going to take me just a little bit longer to fix this one. But again, your brows are supposed to be sisters, not twins. But since I am a perfectionist, I'm going to get them as close as I can to match each other. And again, I'm taking that sponge just to make sure that that concealer is evenly blended out. Now I'm just going to take that same concealer at the top. You can use a lighter concealer at the bottom and a concealer that's close to your skin tone at the top, as well as your foundation shade at the top, just to make sure everything is nice and crispy and you get your desired shape. And I do apologize for my hand being in the way and that you can't see, but I'm right-handed, so I'm trying to do what I can to make sure that you can see everything. But I'm just cleaning that up just to make sure that that line is nice and crispy. Now I'm going to take an eyeshadow base and add this on top of my lids. You also can use a concealer if you don't have a base. And I'm just making sure that it's thick enough that those colors will be able to show through. And I'm going to take my beauty blender to blend that out just so I can make sure that it is nice and seamless. Again, you can use a concealer that's light. That's what I meant by using a lighter concealer to clean up your brows at the bottom, just so you didn't have to use another product just like I did. Now I'm just continuing to blend that out, and then I'm going to add on some setting powder on top just so that my eyelids don't crease. I didn't know which eyeshadows I was going to use as of yet. That's why I ended up adding the powder. This step is optional. You don't have to, but I thought I was going to be using glitter pigments, but I chose not to. And now it's time for the eyeshadows. I'm going to zoom in so you can see everything that I'm doing up close. And I'm just taking my first eyeshadow shade, which is my transitional color. And I'm just taking and doing circular motions as well as windshield wiping motions just to make sure that everything is nicely blended before moving on to my next shade. And you want to make sure that everything is blended, blended, blended. I cannot say that enough. The saying is, when in doubt, blend it out. Just continue to blend until you 100% know that it's going to flow together. And I'm repeating those same steps on the opposite side. So I'm just going to be quiet so you can enjoy it. Now I'm just taking a different brush with no product on it, and I'm just making sure that I blend those edges out so that everything is not so harsh looking. And this just makes everything come more together, in my opinion. This part is optional. You don't have to get another brush. You can simply use the same one. Sorry guys, my lips are very chapped, so I did grab lip gloss that I made. And if you want more details about that, just DM me on my Instagram. Everything will be listed down below. Okay, now back to the shadows. Now I'm just taking my second shade and I'm adding that to the outer corner of my eyelid, and I'm just doing little circular motions just to make sure that that is evenly blended into that transitional color. And I'm going to continue to do that until I like the way it blends. And I blow on my brush so that I don't get a lot of fallout. Sometimes I like to do my foundation before doing my eyeshadows, and if you are one of those people, you have to tap off the excess or blow on it just so that it doesn't mess up your foundation if you happen to have any fallout. Now I'm just going to be going back and forth between those two colors just to make sure that I don't have any harsh lines. Now for my third color, I am going in with some tapping motion, and then I'm going to switch to swiping motions just so I can make sure that that color really shows through. And you're going to see me switch between the three brushes just to make sure that everything is nicely blended before moving on. You can also add concealer, or again your eyeshadow base, to cut your crease just to make sure that that third shade show a little bit more. I didn't want to do it for this particular look because I didn't want it to be too bold. Again, I am repeating that same step, and I'm just doing little swiping and tapping motions just to make sure that that color really shows through. Now I'm going in with some moisturizer, and I'm just adding a few little dots onto my face before blending it out. And if you haven't seen my skin prep before makeup video, I will have everything in the iCard that you can check out after this video. I'm going to take a little bit of mattifying primer onto my nose and around my nose just so that I don't get too oily throughout the day. Also, I forgot to add on primer to the rest of my face, so hopefully the moisturizer just does the trick on its own. This part is optional, but I'm taking some setting powder and adding that onto my nose as well, just again so I don't get oily, at least not for a long time. So I'm trying out a new product. I'm using the Fenty Beauty Eavesdrop Blurring Skin Tint. I'm in the shade 20, and I don't know if I put enough, but I'm just buffing this in with a foundation brush, and so far so good. I didn't cover up all of my dark spots, but later on in the video you will see me add just a little bit more. It still showed through, which is okay, because it's supposed to look like skin anyways, so that's fine. Also, it's very lightweight. It really didn't feel like I had anything on, but it did cover, for the most part, my dark spots. I didn't need to go in with a corrector or anything like that. Whatever product is left on the brush, I will use that to cover my nose. Now I'm just finishing my brows, and I'm using whatever the skin tint as well as concealer that is left in the center of my forehead, and I'm just, or excuse me, center of my brows, and I'm just using that to feather that into my brows, giving it that more faded look. I got this technique from another YouTuber. I will list her name down below. Now taking that eyeshadow base again, going underneath my eyes, kind of using this as a color corrector, and I realized that it's not thick enough to go underneath my eyes to conceal, so I am going to go on top of this with a concealer. Now with a concealer, you always want to use a concealer that's a shade or two lighter than your skin tone. And as you can see, this one is lighter, but I feel like it's not light enough. So I did purchase another one, but I'm going to continue using this one before opening a new pack. As you can see, it blended out really well. It's not too light and it's not too dark, but I just wanted a tad bit lighter. And also it blends out so good. It's really creamy. I just love it. And I'm just adding a little more just to make sure I get that full coverage. A tip to get a concealer to be full coverage is to let it sit for a little bit and then blend it out. But don't let it sit too long that it completely dries and it's stuck on your face the way that you applied it. Now taking a setting powder and just making sure that I set under my eyes because I don't want my eyes to start creasing up on me. They're going to crease anyway. I just don't want it to be super noticeable right away. Taking that concealer base again and I'm adding that to my chin as well as my forehead and then down the center of my nose. And while this sits for a little while, I'm going to take some bronzer and I'm going to contour my nose just a little bit. And I'm taking that same bronzer and I'm just adding that to the rest of the areas on my face that you would normally contour. Now I'm going to blend out that base because I let it sit too long and I don't know how it's going to make everything look, but it blended out pretty well. Taking an eyeshadow brush, I'm going to blend out that bronzer on my nose. Now I'm just taking some banana powder and I'm doing that reverse contour trick. And this is a step that you would do if you didn't have on your eyeshadows yet, but you had on your foundation first. Now I'm just taking some banana powder and I'm just using this under my bronzer or your contour, whichever one you choose to do. And this step is optional, you don't have to. And also the reason why my powder looks like this is because I'm almost out and I want to use this one all the way up before I open a new one. Now I don't let this sit for a long period of time because I don't want it to be too light. And a trick to dusting this away is getting a pressed powder that's the color of your skin tone and dusting that away. And if you have to, add a little pressure to make sure that everything is fully dusted away. Now I'm just going in with a little bit of blush. This step for me is optional. I don't always use it. Now I'm just going in with some highlight. I did add a little bit too much, but I'm going to show you how I blended that out so that it don't look too heavy. I'm also adding a little bit of highlight under my brow bone just to help pull that look together. I'm also going to do my inner tear ducts. I'm just checking everything to make sure that everything is properly blended before moving on to my setting spray. This setting spray is also a new product, and I will tell you guys how I like it in a separate video. Okay, and now I'm just going to let you guys enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this video just as well as I did making it. Please don't forget to like, comment, and